On a cloudy afternoon, in an elegant banquet hall in the city of Barcelona, the wedding of Martín and Angela was taking place. The room was decorated with brightly colored flower arrangements and twinkling lights, creating an atmosphere that, at first glance, seemed festive and joyful. However, a palpable tension filled the air. Angela, in a wedding dress that fit uncomfortably over her 6-month pregnant belly with twins, felt out of place. Her swollen feet and aching back made her wish she were anywhere else. Sitting at the main table, she observed the guests, all members of high society, who looked at her sideways with disdain and whispered amongst themselves. Discomfort and sadness were reflected in her eyes. Martín, her now husband, was at the next table, increasingly drunk, laughing and talking with his friends, completely ignoring Angela. Vanessa, Martín's mother, was in her element, entertaining the high society ladies with gossip and forced laughter. She didn't miss an opportunity to make hurtful comments about Angela, making sure everyone knew she considered her new daughter-in-law unworthy of her son. Angela stood up with difficulty, holding the hem of her dress, and headed for the bathroom. She needed a break, a moment to herself. On the way, she passed close to Vanessa, who had her back turned, chatting with a high society lady. "Oh, dear Angela, I don't even know how to deal with this tragedy," Vanessa was saying in an exaggerated tone. "My son Martín has lost his mind. He brought this girl from the orphanage, and on top of that, she's pregnant with twins. We had to have this wedding. I almost fainted. Why is all this happening to me? We don't even know if the babies are his." Angela stopped dead in her tracks, feeling hurt and humiliated. She coughed loudly, interrupting Vanessa, who turned around with a fake smile. "Angela, dear, are you feeling unwell? You look so pale. I'll ask the driver to take you home. You need to rest more due to your condition. Go home. We'll finish the party without you." With tears in her eyes, Angela nodded and left the hall. The feeling of being an intruder at her own wedding overwhelmed her. She arrived home and cried silently, hoping that Martín would notice her absence and come to comfort her. But he didn't appear. He arrived at dawn, completely drunk, and collapsed on the bed without even undressing. Angela, feeling more alone than ever, realized that her married life would not be what she had dreamed of. The days following the wedding were a clear indication of the reality that Angela would have to face. Martín returned late every night, smelling of alcohol and cheap perfume, showing no interest in his pregnant wife. Angela, though exhausted by her complicated pregnancy, tried to take care of Martín, hoping that one day he would show the same love and affection as before. Martín, influenced by his mother, became increasingly distant. Vanessa took every opportunity to belittle Angela, making her feel like a stranger in her own home. Arguments between Angela and Martín became frequent, full of reproaches and misunderstandings. Angela, in her desperation, clung to the hope that Martín would change over time, but his indifference only increased. One night, Martín arrived home, more drunk than usual. Angela, worried, helped him to bed. "Why are you doing this, Martín? We need to talk. We have 2 babies on the way," she pleaded. Martín, his eyes glazed over, looked at her without understanding. "Not now, Angela. I'm tired. We'll talk tomorrow." But that tomorrow never came. Every day was a repeat of the last, with Angela dealing alone with the challenges of her pregnancy and Martín evading his responsibilities as a husband and future father. Martín's family, although wealthy, was far from warm and welcoming. Vanessa exercised absolute control over everyone, from the employees to her own son. There was no room for genuine affection in that house, only appearances and manipulations. Angela felt trapped, with no one to turn to. Vanessa took every opportunity to remind Angela of her humble origins and lack of status. Even when Angela tried to get closer to Martine, Vanessa intervened, sowing doubt and discord. The relationship between Angela and Martine was deteriorating rapidly, with Martine increasingly influenced by his mother and less capable of making decisions for himself. Angela, lonely and desperate, began to question her marriage and her future in that family. Every day was a struggle, not only to maintain her health and that of her babies, but also to maintain her dignity and her sense of identity. The breaking point came one night when Angela, exhausted and emotionally shattered, found Martine in a heated argument with Vanessa. Shouts echoed throughout the house. "Enough, Mum! I can't take your manipulations anymore," Martine shouted, clearly affected by the alcohol. "You're a fool, Martine. This is all that woman's fault," Vanessa retorted furiously. "She's not worthy of you." Angela, unable to bear it any longer, intervened. "Please, stop fighting. This is getting us nowhere." Martine, in a fit of rage, pushed Angela. "You don't understand anything. This is all your fault." Angela fell to the floor, clutching her belly in a reflex action to protect her babies. The sight of her husband, the man she once loved, transformed into someone so cruel and violent, was the last straw. With tears in her eyes, Angela struggled to her feet and looked at Martine one last time before leaving the room. That night, as she cried in the solitude of her room, she made a decision. She couldn't go on living like this, not just for her own sake, but for the sake of her children. Angela lay down on the bed, her eyes fixed on the ceiling as memories of the past flooded her mind. She remembered the days at the orphanage, where life was hard and every day was a struggle for survival. Food was scarce, and companionship was often cold. Angela had learned to fend for herself from a very young age, developing an inner strength that many lacked. Her determination led her to excel in her studies, earning the respect of her teachers, and eventually a scholarship to study nursing. She met Martine at university, a charming and attentive young man who seemed like any girl's dream. At first, their love blossomed like a fairy tale romance. Martine made her feel special, valued, and for the first time in a long time, Angela believed she had found her place in the world. However, that happiness was soon tarnished by the overbearing influence of Vanessa, Martine's mother. From the beginning, Vanessa did not accept Angela. She considered her an intruder, someone who did not belong in their social circle. Vanessa made sure to make life difficult for her, questioning her every decision and belittling her in front of others. Martine, who had initially defended Angela, began to give in to his mother's pressure. Increasingly, he became a puppet in her hands with no opinion of his own. Angela felt trapped, with no way out, and loneliness began to take hold of her. Life in the house of Martine's family was opulent, but also cold and suffocating. Angela, who had always valued her independence, was forced to quit her job to meet the expectations of her new family. Vanessa insisted that a daughter-in-law of her status should not work, but should dedicate herself entirely to the responsibilities of the home and prepare to be a mother. Every day, Angela felt her identity fading away. Her routine was reduced to following Vanessa's orders, and every attempt to get closer to Martine was thwarted by her husband's indifference. The house, though luxurious, had become a gilded cage. As the months went by, Angela noticed that Martine was becoming more and more distant. The nights he came home late became more frequent, and eventually rumors began to circulate. One afternoon, Angela decided to follow Martine after one of his usual nights out. What she discovered devastated her. Martine had a mistress. Heartbroken, she confronted Martine. The argument was fierce, but instead of apologizing, Martine accused her of being the cause of his infidelity. "You're never happy, Angela. You're always complaining. I needed an escape." Vanessa, as always, took her son's side, blaming Angela for not being a good wife. "Perhaps if you tried harder, Martine wouldn't have to seek solace elsewhere," she told her scornfully. The fights became constant. Every word from Vanessa was a dagger, and every look from Martine a reminder of his betrayal. Angela felt increasingly isolated, a stranger in her own home. The worry for the future of her children and the toxic environment in which they would grow up tormented her day and night. The nights became eternal as Angela wept silently, feeling her world crumble around her. She knew she couldn't go on like this, but she saw no clear way out. Despair consumed her, and her health began to suffer. One day, while Vanessa continued to hurt her with her comments, Angela felt a stabbing pain in her belly. She doubled over, trying to catch her breath. "Enough, Vanessa! Leave me alone!" she cried with what little strength she had left. Vanessa looked at her coldly. "Don't be so dramatic, Angela. I'm sure it's nothing." But Angela knew it wasn't. The pain was unbearable. Finally, after a brief argument, Vanessa agreed to call an ambulance. At the hospital, the doctors confirmed her worst fears. She was in premature labor. For the next few days, Angela remained in the hospital, alone and frightened. No one came to visit her. Martine was still away, and Vanessa showed no interest in her well-being. The hours passed slowly, filled with fear and anguish. Angela clung to the hope that everything would be okay, but uncertainty consumed her. It was in the midst of this darkness that Angela met Nina, a nurse with a kind heart and gentle hands. Nina, seeing Angela's situation, decided to take matters into her own hands. She made sure that Angela received the best possible care, and, most importantly, she provided her with company and emotional support. "Everything will be all right, Angela. I'm here with you," Nina would tell her, holding her hand firmly. Diego, Nina's brother, also got involved. Despite his own difficulties, he did not hesitate to help Angela in any way he could. He brought homemade food and chatted with her to distract her from her worries. "We'll get through this together," Diego promised her on one of his visits. "You're not alone." Over time, the constant presence of Nina and Diego began to make a difference. Angela began to feel that all was not lost. There were people willing to help her, people who cared about her and her children. Finally, after weeks of uncertainty, Angela gave birth to 2 beautiful babies, a boy and a girl. Although the birth was difficult, both she and the babies were healthy. The joy of holding her children in her arms gave Angela a new strength to move forward. Nina and Diego were by her side throughout the entire process, and when it was time to leave the hospital, they took care of everything. Diego had found a small apartment where Angela and the children could start over. Although modest, the place was cozy and filled with hope. "This is the beginning of something new, Angela," Diego told her as he helped her settle in. "Here you can find the peace you need." The first few days in the new apartment were difficult. Angela was still recovering from the birth, and learning to care for 2 newborns was no easy task. However, with the help of Nina and Diego, she gradually began to adapt to her new life. Diego was always present, helping her with the babies, taking them for walks, and making sure Angela had everything she needed. His constant presence and unconditional support began to awaken feelings in Angela that went beyond gratitude. Angela looked at her children as they slept, feeling a mixture of love and fear. She knew the road ahead would be hard, but she was determined to face it with courage. Diego's presence gave her renewed hope, a light in the midst of darkness. One evening, as they were preparing dinner together, Angela turned to Diego and said, "I don't know how to thank you for all you've done for us. I don't know what I would have done without you and Nina." Diego smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "You don't need to thank me, Angela. I'm here because I want to be. Everyone deserves a second chance." With those words, Angela knew she was not alone. She had someone she could rely on, someone who cared about her and her children. Little by little, she began to feel that maybe, just maybe, she could find happiness again. The days passed slowly, but each one brought with it small moments of joy and solace for Angela. Diego, with his constant presence and generous heart, became a father figure to the twins. From changing diapers to singing them lullabies, Diego took on all the responsibilities with a devotion that deeply moved Angela. "Diego, I don't know how to thank you," Angela would say, watching him gently rock one of the babies in his arms. "You are like an angel to us." Diego smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "You don't have to thank me, Angela. These little ones deserve all the love in the world, and so do you." With the help of Diego and Nina, the life of Angela and her children began to stabilize. Every morning, Diego made sure Angela had time to rest, taking the babies to the park or simply caring for them while she slept a little longer. The nights were easier with Diego there to share the burden, and Nina's reassuring presence was a constant reminder that she was not alone. "Angela, we are here for you. Take your time to recover," Nina would tell her while preparing a cup of tea. "Everything will be better with time." As the weeks turned into months, Angela began to rely more and more on Diego. His unwavering support and patience provided her with a sense of security she had not known in years. The children also became attached to him, laughing and babbling whenever Diego was near. One afternoon, while the twins were asleep in their cribs, Angela and Diego sat on the small balcony of the apartment, enjoying a rare moment of peace. "You and Nina gave me a new life. I don't know how to thank you both," said Angela, her voice full of gratitude. Diego took her hand and looked into her eyes. "Angela, you have given us a lot too. Seeing your strength and dedication inspires me every day. We are in this together." Over time, the bond between Angela and Diego deepened. There was no rush, no need for grand words. Their actions spoke for themselves. Diego was there through thick and thin, sharing laughter and drying tears. One night, after a long day of caring for the children, Diego stayed a while longer, helping Angela clean the kitchen. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with an unspoken connection that went beyond words. "Thank you for everything, Diego," Angela said softly, feeling a warmth radiating from her heart. Diego turned to her, a tender smile on his face. "I will always be here for you, Angela. Always." As Angela adjusted to her new life, she began to feel more hopeful about the future. With Diego by her side and Nina's unconditional love, she knew she could face any challenge. The children were growing strong and happy, surrounded by love and care. One day, as she watched Diego play with the twins in the park, Angela realized how much her life had changed. She had found a family in the most unexpected place, and her heart was filled with profound gratitude. "This is just the beginning," she thought, smiling as she watched Diego lift the children into the air, their laughter filling the cool afternoon air. Angela knew there was still a long way to go, but with Diego and Nina by her side, she was certain that anything was possible. And so, with a renewed sense of hope and love, she prepared to face the future, one day at a time. Meanwhile, at the Ortega family home, things were taking an unexpected and grim turn. Wrong financial decisions and a lack of foresight brought the family business to the brink of collapse. Vanessa, who had always run the business with an iron fist, lost her position due to poor results and the growing distrust of her partners. The fall was swift and devastating. Martín, for his part, found himself in a downward spiral. With his family in crisis and his mother facing public humiliation, he began to seek solace in alcohol and gambling. Nights in casinos and bars became his routine, and money disappeared as quickly as it arrived. The dependence on drinking and gambling not only emptied his pockets but also eroded his health and spirit. One such night, Martín found himself staring at his reflection in the bathroom mirror of a dingy bar. His face was haggard, his eyes bloodshot, and an unkempt beard covered what was once an attractive appearance. He wondered at what point his life had taken such a turn and couldn't help but think of Angela and the children he had never met. Guilt and regret consumed him. But he didn't know how to get out of the abyss he had fallen into. One afternoon, after losing a large sum of money at the casino, Martín slumped down on a park bench, his head in his hands. All seemed lost. He decided it was time to try to contact Angela. He took out his phone and dialed her number, a number he still remembered despite the months of silence. On the other side of town, Angela was preparing dinner while Diego played with the twins in the living room. The phone rang, and upon seeing Martín's name on the screen, her heart skipped a beat. She hesitated for a moment but decided to answer. "Hello?" Angela said in a firm voice, though her heart was pounding. "Angela, it's me, Martín. Please listen to me," he replied, his voice broken and desperate. "I know I have no right to ask anything, but I need to talk to you. I need to see you." Angela closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Martín, I don't know what you expect from me. You left me when I needed you most. There's nothing more to say. I know, and I'm sorry." "I'm so sorry," Martín said, his voice breaking. "I've lost everything, Angela. My life is a mess. Mom, Vanessa ruined us, and I don't know how to get out of this. I just want to see you. Just one more time." Angela felt a mixture of emotions, anger, pain, but also a glimmer of compassion. "Martín, I wish you well, but I can't let you back into our lives. I found peace and stability with Diego and the children. I hope you find your way, but it will be without us." Martín knew that Angela's words were final. He hung up the phone, feeling more lost than ever. Back home, Vanessa was also facing her own personal hell. The loss of control of the company and the public shame left her bitter and resentful. She blamed everyone around her for her failures, but especially Martín, whose weakness she considered the main cause of her misfortune. "You're useless, Martín. Look what you've done with our lives," Vanessa would shout, her eyes filled with fury. "If you hadn't been so weak, if you had listened to my advice, none of this would have happened." Martín couldn't take the accusations anymore. "Enough, Mom. You're the one who led us to this. You never let me make my own decisions, always controlling everything. Look what you've done to our lives." Martín's words echoed through the empty house, and for the first time, Vanessa was left speechless. The truth of her mistakes hit her hard, and something inside her broke. However, the damage was done, and both sank into the misery of their own decisions. The truth of her mistakes hit Vanessa hard, but the damage was done. While Martin and Vanessa were drowning in their misery, a dark obsession began to form in Vanessa's mind: to regain control at any cost. Convinced that Angela and the children were the cause of her misfortunes, Vanessa devised a malevolent plan to kidnap the twins and thus force Angela to return and destroy the happiness she had found. One night, while Diego was at work and Angela was home alone with the children, Vanessa's plan was set in motion. Two hooded men broke into the house, silent and determined. Angela, hearing strange noises, ran to the twins' room, but it was too late. The men violently pushed her aside, knocking her unconscious before taking the children. When Angela regained consciousness, the silence of the house was deafening. Panic seized her as she saw the empty cribs. With trembling hands, she called Diego. "Diego, they've taken the children. Please help me," she cried, her voice breaking with fear and despair. Diego, upon hearing the news, dropped everything and raced home. On the way, he called the police, describing the situation as accurately as possible. When he arrived, he found Angela a mess of tears, trembling with terror. Without wasting time, he hugged her tightly and promised that they would not rest until they found the children. The police arrived shortly after and began their investigation. Angela and Diego answered all their questions, trying to remember any detail that might be helpful. One officer, experienced in kidnapping cases, assured them that they would do everything possible to find the little ones. Hours passed, and Angela's desperation only grew. She couldn't stop thinking about her children, imagining the terror they must be feeling. Diego, by her side, tried to remain calm and be the pillar of strength Angela needed. Suddenly, they received an anonymous call that provided a crucial lead. "I saw two men with small children in an abandoned house on the other side of town," the voice on the other end of the line said, before abruptly hanging up. Wasting no time, Diego and Angela, accompanied by the police, headed to the location given. The house was in a desolate area surrounded by thick vegetation and dirt roads. Upon arrival, the officers fanned out cautiously, making sure not to alert the kidnappers. Angela and Diego stayed back, watching with hearts in their throats as the police approached the house. The minutes stretched on endlessly until they finally heard a shout of relief. "We've got them!" The children were scared but unharmed, clinging to the officers who had rescued them. Angela rushed towards them, hugging them tightly and whispering words of comfort as tears of relief streamed down her face. Diego joined them, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "We're here. Everything's going to be okay," he said, his voice firm though thick with emotion. The police arrested the kidnappers, who quickly confessed to being hired by Vanessa. With this new information, they wasted no time in arresting her as well. Vanessa was put on trial, where she faced serious charges of kidnapping and conspiracy to harm. Her gaze, once haughty and scornful, now reflected the emptiness and despair of someone who had lost everything. The trial was swift and conclusive. Vanessa was found guilty and sentenced to a long term in a psychiatric hospital, where she would have to face the consequences of her actions. Martin, upon learning the truth, felt a deep sense of guilt and shame. He recognized that his own weakness and his mother's influence had caused immense suffering to Angela and their children. One day, he gathered the courage to find Angela's number again. This time, not to ask for forgiveness, but to make peace with himself. He dialed the number, and when Angela answered, his words were sincere and full of remorse. "Angela, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed to tell you that I deeply regret all the pain I caused you and our children. I realize that my mother and I destroyed something beautiful. I can only hope that you can find it in your heart to find peace." Angela listened in silence, her heart now calm and steady. "Martín, I appreciate your words. I have found peace and happiness with Diego and our children. I hope you too find your way and can heal." Martín hung up the phone, feeling relieved for having faced his guilt and beginning a new chapter in his life. He knew that the road to redemption would be long and difficult, but he was willing to walk it. Meanwhile, Angela and Diego continued to build their life together, more united than ever. The recent events had strengthened their bond and shown them that, despite adversity, their love and determination could overcome any obstacle. Every day, Angela felt more grateful for the family she had formed and for the unconditional love she shared with Diego. The children were growing up surrounded by affection and security, and life, though full of challenges, also offered them countless moments of joy. After the traumatic experience of the kidnapping, Angela and Diego decided it was time to take a new step forward. With the support of the community and their friends, they began to rebuild their life together. Neighbors and friends came together to help them in every way they could, from caring for the twins to providing emotional support. Diego became an essential father figure to the twins. The children adored him and soon began to call him Dad. This new family dynamic further strengthened the bond between Angela and Diego, who dedicated themselves completely to building a life together. One day, while playing in the park, one of the twins, Tomás, ran up to Diego with a radiant smile. "Dad, look what I found," he said, showing off a small insect he had discovered in the grass. Diego smiled and lifted the boy into his arms. "That's wonderful, Tomás. Did you know that insect is called a beetle?" Angela watched this scene with a smile on her lips, feeling deeply grateful to have found someone like Diego. "Thank you for everything you do for us," she said, once the children had moved away a bit. "You are the pillar of our family." Diego looked at her tenderly. "Angela, I do it because I love them. You are all my life now." The family's life took an even more positive turn when Diego landed a stable job at a respected company. The new job not only improved their financial situation, but also gave Diego a greater sense of security and personal satisfaction. "Diego, congratulations on the new job," Angela told him one afternoon, hugging him with joy. "I knew you could do it." "Thank you, Angela. This is for us, for our family. I want us to have everything we need and more," Diego replied, feeling proud to be able to contribute even more to the well-being of his home. Over time, the economic worries that had once weighed them down began to dissipate. They could plan for the future with more peace of mind and security, focusing on the growth and development of their children. Inspired by the stability and love that now reigned in her life, Angela decided to pursue her dream of becoming a doctor. With Diego's unwavering support and the help of her friends, she enrolled in a program of study that would allow her to complete her training. "You have always been very dedicated and brilliant, Angela. I know you will be an amazing doctor," Diego would tell her, encouraging her every day. The days were long and sometimes exhausting, but Angela was determined. Her children were her greatest motivation, and every time she looked at them, she felt a renewed drive to keep going. Diego took care of the children while she studied, and the house was filled with an atmosphere of collaboration and mutual support. "Mom, look at this drawing I made for you," exclaimed Sophia one night, showing her a colourful drawing of the family with Angela dressed in a doctor's coat. Angela was touched to see the drawing. "It's beautiful, Sophia." "Thank you, my love. You are my greatest inspiration." Finally, after much effort and dedication, Angela completed her studies and earned her medical degree. The graduation ceremony was a time of pride and emotion for the whole family. Diego and the children applauded her enthusiastically as she took the stage to receive her diploma. "You did it, Angela," Diego said, hugging her tightly. "I knew you could." "Thank you, Diego. I couldn't have done it without you and the children," Angela replied, feeling overwhelmed with gratitude and love. The family of Angela and Diego became an example of resilience and unwavering love. Despite the challenges and adversities they had faced, they managed to build a life full of happiness and harmony. The twins grew up in an environment full of love, and the relationship between Angela and Diego grew stronger with each passing day. One Sunday afternoon, while enjoying a picnic in the park, Angela looked at her family with a sense of fulfillment. Diego was playing with the children, and their laughter echoed through the fresh air. Life, though full of challenges, had also offered them countless moments of joy and satisfaction. "This is just the beginning of our story," Angela thought, feeling a deep inner peace. "Together, we can face anything." With Diego by her side and her children filling her life with love and hope, Angela knew that the future held many more adventures and joys. The family they had built was strong and united, and with that solid foundation, they could dream of a tomorrow full of possibilities and happiness. The sun shone brightly on the day Angela and Diego were married. It was an intimate ceremony, surrounded by their loved ones who had witnessed their struggle and triumph. The twins, dressed in smart little suits, carried the rings and smiled with pride as they watched their parents formalize a love they already knew was unbreakable. "Angela, I promise to love and support you every step of the way in our life together," Diego said, his eyes reflecting the depth of his feelings. "And I, Diego, promise to be by your side every moment, building our future together," replied Angela, feeling an indescribable peace and happiness. The wedding marked the beginning of a new stage in their lives. Diego and Angela dedicated themselves completely to raising their children in a home filled with love and understanding. Each day was an opportunity to teach them the values of respect, empathy, and strength. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Martín lived a very different reality. Guilt and remorse haunted him every day, constantly reminding him of the mistakes he had made. He couldn't stop thinking about Angela and what he had lost through his own weakness and Vanessa's toxic influence. The nights became endless, and insomnia consumed him. "How could I let everything fall apart like this?" he wondered, his eyes red-rimmed and his soul shattered. Every attempt to rebuild his life seemed futile, and the void in his heart only grew. Martín tried several times to find solace in alcohol, but each time he did, the pain only intensified. His life became a cycle of self-destruction from which he could not escape. The image of Angela happy with Diego and their children haunted him, constantly reminding him of what he could never get back. Vanessa, on the other hand, was in a far worse place. Confined to a psychiatric hospital, she spent her days in solitude, facing the demons she herself had created. Her mind, once sharp and manipulative, was now broken by the weight of her actions. Doctors and nurses treated her with professionalism, but Vanessa could not escape the reality of her situation. "This is all my fault," she muttered repeatedly, staring out the window of the hospital. The reality of her excessive ambition and her need for control had led her to a place of no return. Vanessa began to realize that she had destroyed not only her own life, but also that of her son, Martín, and that of Angela. Bitterness and regret were her only companions, and loneliness was a punishment worse than any physical prison. Each day was a reminder of the consequences of her actions, and her life faded away in an endless sea of remorse. Angela and Diego, on the other hand, became an example of resilience and true love. Their story was known in the community as a testament to the power of love and family unity. Despite the adversities, they had shown that with patience, mutual support, and an unbreakable commitment, it was possible to overcome any obstacle. One afternoon, while enjoying a picnic in the park with their children, Diego took Angela's hand and looked into her eyes. "We've been through a lot, but I'm grateful for every moment because it has brought us to where we are today," he said, a smile full of love spreading across his face. "Me too, Diego. I couldn't imagine my life without you and our children." "We've found the peace and happiness I always dreamed of," Angela replied, feeling a deep gratitude for all they had built together. The twins ran and played nearby, their laughter filling the air with a melody of joy and hope. Angela knew the road had been difficult, but she also knew that each challenge had strengthened their bond and taught them valuable lessons about love and life. Over time, Angela became a respected and dedicated doctor, known for her compassion and ability to connect with her patients. Her career was a reflection of her unbreakable spirit and her desire to help others. Diego, for his part, continued to thrive in his work, making sure his family had everything they needed to live comfortably. His dedication and love for Angela and the children never wavered, and each day was a testament to his unwavering commitment to his family. The story of Angela and Diego is a powerful narrative of resilience, love, and redemption. Angela, who initially faces betrayal and abandonment by Martín, demonstrates impressive inner strength as she fights for the safety and happiness of her children. Her encounter with Diego, a kind and supportive man, marks the beginning of a new stage full of hope. Angela's transformation from a woman burdened by pain to a successful doctor and loving mother is inspiring. Diego, for his part, not only becomes an unconditional support, but also the father the twins need, creating a united and loving family. The journey of Martín and Vanessa towards recognizing their mistakes and the inevitable punishment for their actions adds a profound layer of justice and reflection to the story. The contrast between their destinies and Angela's highlights the importance of empathy, true love, and the ability to overcome adversity. The most valuable lesson to be learned from this narrative is that, with patience, love, and mutual support, it is possible to rebuild life and find happiness, even after the darkest of times. If you found this story as moving as we did, please like and comment to let us know how you feel. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on other meaningful stories.